Mark Rogers TV talking Oklahoma football just a few minutes after Bob Stoops left the podium there in Norman after what has been a very surprising announcement today that the longtime Oklahoma coach is going to step down immediately prior to the 2017 campaign, which should be a very hopeful one for the Sooners on the football field in the Big 12. We bring in Graham Dudley from Crimson and Cream Machine. It's the Oklahoma platform there on SB Nation. Graham, how you doing tonight?
Well, a lot of mixed emotions right now, Mark, but other than that, doing real well, thanks.
Exactly. I was just hoping once I heard the initial announcement that he was stepping down, that it wasn't something off the field related, something family related that was forcing him to step down, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So we all took in, I took in what was aired there on ESPN. I know that you took in basically the entire press conference that is winding down right now. So just your thoughts about what Stoops had to say about his stay there at Oklahoma and his decision to leave the sideline.
Yeah, so the presser just wrapped up, and so Stoops released a statement, I guess, about an hour after this news broke this afternoon. And of course, there is always going to be, in these situations, speculation about health-related reasons or some other problems within the program. And Stoops basically said that he just felt like the time was right. And I think there's a few factors that go into that. Stoops obviously has been around. He's won every BCS bowl game. He's won a national championship. So I think in that point of view, he's got a, what else can I do kind of aspect there. But he also feels like it's the right moment because of the person that he's handing off to in former offensive coordinator, now Sooners head coach Lincoln Riley, who was brought in 2 years ago to be the offensive coordinator and has produced some really outstanding results in a sort of quasi-air raid scheme that he brought to the team. And everybody who was talking about him today, from OU President David Boren to Joe Castiglione to, of course, Coach Stoops, just talked about all the qualities that he displayed through his 2-year tenure that led them to believe that he could be a person to hand off to eventually. And of course, the fan base speculated about that quite a bit as well. But none of us saw it coming this soon. And from what Coach Stoops was just saying during the press conference, even he didn't really think about retiring right now, didn't start thinking about it until a week and a half to a week ago. So a very quick decision from Coach Stoops, but from all indications, one made for all the right reasons.
Graham, you can't answer this question, but I'm going to ask you to speculate as a guy who's got a pulse on the program, because it does seem kind of odd, because on one hand, as you alluded to, he can't accomplish anything else at Oklahoma. But on the other hand, it's not like he had this great career and it's kind of winding down, kind of dwindling. He's racked up a couple 7-5 seasons and he's just not on top of his game and needs to step aside. We've seen that in recent years with the likes of Frank Beamer and Bobby Bowden in particular. This is a guy who just brought in his best recruiting class in 6 or 7 years, just went undefeated in the Big 12. Is the odds-on favorite to win the conference again and have that likely path to the college football playoff. He's got a Heisman Trophy candidate in Baker Mayfield. He just has everything sitting in front of him to make one more run for a possible national championship. It just seems odd that he would step away. I credit him for making the decision that he feels he needs to make that's in his heart. But in terms of just X's and O's and getting the job done and making maybe one more run, it seems like he's got the team ready to possibly do that.
Yeah, and I think, if it does indeed turn out to be the case that he is just leaving because he wanted to, then, hey, we have to really respect him for that, because coaches are not the kind of people, just in general, who ever walk away until somebody makes them because they're doing such a bad job. And Bob today really drove home that he didn't want to go out like that. And so I think that's commendable. But, obviously it took me a little while to, process and get through my initial thoughts about the news. But when I really stopped to think about it, my best guess is that when you look at the way the past even several months have gone for the Sooners, Tom Herman coming in to the University of Texas and infusing that program with just a new dose of enthusiasm and literally stealing recruits from out underneath the Sooners, and just really starting a quick rebuild for that program. And just the way that the Sooners have, as much as you can stagnate in an off season, which I don't know if you really can, but there's nothing super exciting going on in Norman. They gave Lincoln Riley an extension on his contract and a raise a couple of months ago, and it looked like the Sooners were all set up for a great season with a great class, but maybe didn't have another outstanding one coming on top of it, and the future was a little bit in doubt, as much as it can be with a program so in such a great position. So I guess my only supposition would be that Bob examined the whole situation there and just decided that Oklahoma would be better served with a new infusion of a new talent, a new enthusiasm, some guy who hasn't been doing it for 18 years, who's excited to hit the trail every day and get after it, and can really compete with a potential budding superstar down in Austin and the new realities facing college football. Because college football has changed a lot during Coach Stoops' tenure, and I think he understands better than anyone that if you don't love rolling out of bed every day and hitting the ground running, then maybe your program would be better served if it was in somebody else's hands. And that's my best guess for what maybe was creeping in Bob Stoops' mind over the past
Yeah, I
week.
completely agree, Graham, that the decision seems to be very commendable considering the situation he has at Oklahoma, the amount of money that he's making, the team that he has coming back in 2017. But he basically is looking at his life, his time with his family, the rat race that is college football coaching, as he alluded to, and stepping down at the time that he felt like it was right for himself, right for his family, and right for the program to move on with Lincoln Riley. Before we talk about Riley, Graham, just your thoughts about Bob Stoops' tenure. So we are so fascinated in America in particular with finishing number one. You have to finish number one. If you're number 2 or 3 or 4, forget it. You were a failure. I just think that this guy has been just unjustly criticized over his tenure for losing certain ball games. And then it gets magnified. That narrative gets magnified, and it's blown way out of proportion. If you look at his record in major bowl games, BCS bowl games, it's not nearly as bad as the typical college football fan would say that it is. Not given credit for winning Big 12 championships. Yes, over the last couple years, it's been the lesser of the Power 5 leagues, but that hasn't always been the case. He's competed against a strong Texas program for most of his tenure. Kansas State's been extremely strong. Oklahoma State's gone to BCS games under Mike Gundy, but he has dominated that conference, and conference championships, unfortunately, are being compromised by the college football playoff. And I think it's extremely important and commendable as a coach, as an X's and O's guy, a guy that can run a program to dominate your conference. I think that speaks volumes. And if people would really look through the postseason history, it's not nearly as bad as the narrative nationally as you sometimes hear it. He won a national championship. He got to 2 others. He got to 3 others and played extremely well that last time out against Florida, and won some other big postseason games as well.
Yeah, Bob Stoops has more Big 12 championships than he does home losses during his tenure, which is ridiculous. I mean, and we're Sooners fans. We're the first people who wish that Bob Stoops had finished more of those seasons, had won that one last game. But he's really going to be remembered as one of the greatest head coaches of all time. I really believe that. I know Oklahoma has a wealth of amazing coaches in its history. And yes, Bob didn't equal the 3 championships that Wilkinson and Switzer accumulated before him, but he has more wins than either of those coaches ever did. He had some great postseason finishes, and he had some great postseason finishes even within the last several years, thinking back to a Sugar Bowl victory over Alabama and Auburn, really backing up his rhetoric about the SEC over that time. So, yeah, like I said, I mean, we wish we didn't get embarrassed by Boise State that one time, and we wish we could have won 1 or 2 more national championships. But there's nothing to complain about with a coach like Bob Stoops. It's really a question of degrees of greatness, and Bob Stoops will forever reside as one of the very best coaches of the 21st century and probably of all time.
Yeah, we could spend the next 20 minutes talking about numbers, but everybody's going to go online and check out those numbers. The one that I'll mention is finishing just a tick under 80% winning percentage. So let's put that in perspective. Since he's been at the helm at Oklahoma, basically is the best winning percentage in college football, because I'm going to put an asterisk next to Boise State's accomplishments of 83.8 winning percentage, because of course they're not playing the level of competition as Oklahoma. So second best winning percentage during that tenure. And if you take into consideration the level of play and the schedule, Oklahoma under Bob Stoops outperforming every one of his rivals inside and outside the Big 12 during his 18 years at the helm.